Yasmin Al-Gamal, former Middle East advisor in the Pentagon, joins me now. This is a tricky one, isn't it? Because Donald Trump has said it's not our fight, all caps. But he's going to have to deal with the aftermath regardless. So it might not be his fight, but he's going to have to deal with it. What does he do?
That's right. Good morning, Richard, and thanks for having me. I mean, this is one of the things that we've seen time and again with U.S. administration saying, this is not our fight. We need to get out of the Middle East. The Middle East is quiet. And yet time and again, they end up being dragged back in because actually what happens in the Middle East does affect U.S. interests and it does affect U.S. allies. So Donald Trump may very well want to stay out of this. But the fact is, at the very least, at a bare minimum, we have 40,000 ISIS fighters, women, and children who are in Syria. There's a U.S. counter-ISIS mission in the northeast of the country. And they're going to be looking at that situation and trying to figure out how do you make it so that these ISIS fighters don't pose a threat to U.S. interests and allies. And that's just at a bare minimum.
Right. But you see, this is the difficulty. That is the lowest thread, if you like, the lowest bar, ensure that things don't get worse. But is there an opportunity here? Because it seems as if the leaders are saying, look, we want an Islamic sort of state, but nothing like Afghanistan. We want to be accepted by you. Give us a bit of room to breathe and we can be all get on. Or am I just being naive?
No, you're not being naive at all. I mean, absolutely. The leader of HTS, which is now the de facto ruler, basically the transitional government, if you will, in Damascus, they have been saying all the right things, all the things that international actors, European countries, the US, regional countries have been wanting to hear from them. They're talking about respect for minorities. They're talking about not wanting to fight with their neighbors. They're talking about Syrians rebuilding Syria for Syrians. You've seen a long list of foreign dignitaries going into Damascus, having meetings with Ahmad al-Shara, as you said, who was formerly known by his nom de guerre, Abu al-Jalani. And so you're seeing, what you're seeing is something that analysts, that foreign actors have long wanted to see out of the Middle East, which is someone actually saying pragmatic things that are in line with what the international community wants.
Where do you think he wants to position Syria between China, Russia, and the United States? Now, look, I realize that's a very simplistic way of looking at it in a difficult area. But at the moment, we do seem to be working out into a tripolar, if you can have such a thing, world, where countries are, if not taking sides, at least aligning themselves predominantly. Where do you believe he wants to align?
Well, let me just add one more name and one more country to the mix, Turkey. Turkey is clearly emerging right now as one of the most influential players, actually, in a post-Assad Syria. And you saw this with the visit of the Turkish foreign minister and the conversations that he's been having with Ahmad al-Shara. They're talking about things like monopoly of force in Syria. They're talking about the Kurdish question. They're talking about Turkey's relationship with the Kurds in northeast Syria. They're talking about the ISIS fighters. And so I don't think you can actually have a conversation about outside influence in Syria without mentioning Turkey. And of course, then that by extension goes into Turkey's relationships with the US, with the EU, with the European bloc, talking about issues like refugees, like assistance. I mean, this opens up a whole new world of possibilities when we talk about what's happening in Syria. I think you're very right to be wondering and questioning, what does this mean for the US, China, Russia, all these big players? But actually, I would zoom in a little bit more in these early days and look at what the regional actors are doing. Because I think if you look at what the regional actors are doing and saying, looking at Lebanon, looking at Turkey, looking at the UAE and Saudi Arabia, that will give us a sense of what kind of picture will emerge and what kind of Syria is likely to emerge over the next few months. And then we can talk about what that means for Russia, China, and the US. But I think really looking regionally and locally in the next few weeks is the way to go, Richard.